What's up, everybody? It is time for Mana Drain. This is episode 44. I'm Moxborn again, your host. Tonight we are talking all about the Pro Tour Dominaria that happened this past weekend. Some really high-level Magic play, both constructed and both draft as well. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that, but we also have a little bit of a comeback. Picked up some Dominaria packs from this past weekend, and figured we'd open them up on stream, see what we get, see if we can open up some Goblin Chain Whirlers and some Karns, and see what we can just come up with all together. Hopefully get some money cards in there. But yeah. Before we get into all that, though, I just wanted to say thank you for watching the stream. You can head over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/72DPI online. Get subscribed. We got a whole bunch of Magic content up on that site, as well as like board games and TV reviews and movies and things like that, other different types of video game podcasts and things like that. So make sure you head over there, check out some of our content. If you like it, leave a comment, share the video if you really enjoy it. We really do appreciate the help. We're pushing 50 subscribers, so we're really trying to get over into those triple digits. So anything you could do to help us out would be greatly appreciated. We are live on twitch.tv/72DPI online. We're live on Facebook Live, and then also for you Xbox users out there, we are also live on Mixer. So if you'd like to watch us stream, we do go live every Monday. It's usually a later podcast. It's pretty late. It's 11:56 right now. We're usually a little bit earlier than this, but it's a late night. It's the late night edition. So let's go ahead and switch gears here. We're gonna go ahead and we got our new trusty overhead cam, so you can see what we open it up live. So let's go ahead. I want to shout out to Bell Book and Comic, our local one of our many local game stores in the area. It's got some great deals on singles and things like that. Look them up. That's Bell Book and Comic here in the Kettering, Dayton area, Ohio. So let's take a look here. There we go. That's a little bit better. See if you guys can get in on there. All right, sweet. Let's just go through our commons and uncommons fairly quickly here. Ooh, we got a new opt. That's nice. So what kind of card we're looking for? Karn. We already opened up a one Teferi already, but Karn's right now the money card sitting at $46. We've also got a couple other ones that we're looking for. So there is the end of our commons. Champion of the Flame is our first uncommon. So nothing there. Mending of Dominaria. The sagas really haven't been getting a lot of love lately. Especially the Pro Tour. Not a lot of love. I didn't see many of them being played in draft either, which is kind of interesting. So you'd think in draft where they're passing the packs around and actually building their decks out of like boosters rather than purchasing singles, there would be more of those cards. So here, let's do this. I'll put our rares on top just so we know. There it is. All right. So there's our first one. All right, let's see. Tolarian Scholar, garbage card. Grow from the Ashes is a card that I'm kind of curious to try in my dinosaur deck. Only because we're looking for some ramp in the late game. You could pay 3 and you search your library for a basic land card, put it into the battlefield, then shuffle your library. If you pay 2 additional, so if you pay 5 total, so 1 green and 4 of anything, you get to search your library for 2 basic lands, put them in the battlefield, and then go ahead and shuffle your library. So taking turn 3 to add a land might be a little slow. We've got to really kind of look at it. What are we doing on turn 4 is really kind of what what the deck wants to do on turn 4, because on turn 4 you're casting, if you only have 4 mana, then you're wanting to cast, your trap, not trap draw, the Ripjaw Raptors and things like that, the 4 drops. But what 5 drops are in the deck that would want this card at 3 mana? You play it, and then on turn 4 now you have 5, presumably 5 mana. So you never know. This might be a better served on turn 5, ramping into on turn 6, ramping into probably realistically 7 mana, unless you're really lucky hitting all your land drops. Let's see here. Blessing, Divination. All right. So there's our commons. Skizit. It's a 5/3 for 1 red. It's got Kicker for 1 red as well. It's got Trample Haste. At the beginning of your end step, if your Skizzer wasn't kicked, sacrifice it. So you can pay 4 mana, have a 5/3 Trample Haste, and if you pay 5 mana, you've got it for the rest of the game. We've got Spore Swarm, which is 3 generic, 1 green. It's an instant. Create 3/1/1 green sapling tokens. Ooh, Sorcerer's Wand. This is a card that I actually kind of want to play with. It's a good limited card. Its equipped creature this creature deals 1 damage to target player or planeswalker. If that creature was a wizard, it deals 2 damage to that player instead. Player or planeswalker instead, equip 3. So it's 1 drop, which is great because most of the time in limited, you're not playing anything on turn 1, and then this gives you something to do, with your, obviously you don't want to do this on turn 3, but like on turn 4, allowing you to tap creatures or whatever. Or however, the other thing you could possibly do is on turn, play this on turn 1, turn 2 play a creature, then turn 3 equip this, and now your creature, now it doesn't have summoning sickness, so you can start dealing damage immediately. So if you've got your wizard deck, put together correctly, and efficiently, I mean, with this, you're looking at hopefully having about somewhere between 5 to 8 wizards in a sealed or limited format to make this viable. Even dealing 1 damage to a player or a planeswalker. It doesn't have creature, so you can't ping a creature to death, which is unfortunate. But there's some pretty powerful wizards out there. So what else do we got? Oh man, I was really hoping for a foil Teferi. Let's see here. We got Ariel, Knight of the Windgrace. It's 2 generic, 1 white, 1 black for a 4/4 vigilance. Human Knight at rare. It's got one white, 2 colorless tap. Create a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance, or you can pay black, tap it, and then also tap X untap knights you control. Destroy target creature with converted power X or less. So you got to tap her plus any additional knight. So if you tap 1 additional knight, you can destroy a target creature with power 1 or less. So it's okay. It's all right. So that we actually got 2 rares in this pack, which is awesome. We've got Joda, Archmage of Eternal, Archmage Eternal. It's got Jeskai color, so that's red, blue, and white. 1 generic for a 4/3 flyer, and you can basically, this gives you the opportunity to cheat your other spells into play. So you've got it's got flying, which is interesting to say the very least for a human wizard, but it also lets you pay one of each color, so white, blue, black, red, green, rather than paying mana cost for spells that you cast. So that's any type of spell that you cast, you get to double. You can basically cast it for that 5 mana. So like if you've got a 10 mana creature or something like Emrakul, you could pay 5 for it and cheat it in play. All right, last pack here. It's gonna be a good one. I feel like we're kind of swing and a miss right now. Swing and a miss. So, everybody have a good weekend? Hope everybody had a good weekend. All right, let's kind of flash through our comments here, see what we got. Misa Unicorn. Aw, that's adorable. A short sword. I think it's hilarious that how long has this game been out, and they're just now using short sword. I feel like a D&D, and the thing is, the game was originally designed to be played in between D&D campaigns. you think short sword would have been one of the first types of. I mean, obviously they didn't have artifacts or not artifacts. They didn't have equipment back, in the original sets. But short swords would have been something I think would have been fairly quick, along with like Sorcerer's Wand. That's another one that's kind of interesting that they haven't used this. Okay, so let's see here. All right, so we got our commons are taken care of. Chainer's Torment. So this is a saga. So it might look a little bit different than some of the other cards that we've seen so far, but this is a new type of card for Dominaria. It's basically like a saga. It's supposed to read like a book, so like different chapters of a book. So as the saga enters and after you draw your draw step, add a lore counter sacrifice it after the third lore counter. So the first lore counter. So when you put it into play, you add a lore counter to it. It basically says Chainer's Torment deals 2 damage to each opponent, and you gain 2 life. So then on your next turn, when you draw a card, you'll put a token on this, and you'll do the same thing over again. And then on the next turn, so you'll be 1 turn, 2 turns, and then third turn, you'll actually, instead of drawing gaining life and dealing damage, you'll put the third token on there. Create an XX black nightmare horror creature token where X is half your life total, rounded up. It deals X damage to you. So if you're at 20, it's going to deal you 10, but it's going to make it 10-10 for you. So it's a little bit of a trade-off. And then after you put that third token on there and you create that token, this gets sacrificed. Let's see here. We got Memorial to War, which is a garbage land, non-basic land. It comes into play tapped. You can tap it to add red mana. Then you can pay 5 mana, tap it, and sacrifice it to destroy target land. So you're paying 6 mana to destroy a target land. Hey, we got another Altasaur. That's awesome because our 2 over here they needed a 4th buddy, which actually is great because we were planning on purchasing a playset of these for the dinosaur deck. Unfortunately, it's a 50-cent card, so it literally would have been cheaper to purchase the card by itself. And then we have a foil islands. That's pretty. Ooh. And then we got a Yargle. That's Jesus. We got a whole bunch of extra cards. That pack was crams. Okay, so we got a Yargle, Glutton of Urborg. It is a 9/3 for 5 mana. There you go. 9/3 for 5 mana. That's it. It's great finisher. It is what it is. All right, well, we didn't hit any really good cards here. We got 2 foils, though, and a foil rare. That's pretty good, right? And we got a Yargle, so it's a win-win, right? We'll call it a wash. So here's your rares that we opened up. And then actually we opened up 4 rares. So not too bad. Actually, let's be honest, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. All right, so we're actually gonna be doing this more often. I kind of like opening up these packs for you guys. I think it's a lot of fun. It gives me a reason to open up packs. The other thing that it shows you guys is kind of with like the Altasaur thing. It's much better to buy singles. Like that 50-cent card, we could have bought. We spent $10 on 3-packs cards. We could have bought a ton of them. Obviously, we only need 4. But it's still a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoy it. Maybe we'll start giving those things away too for subscribers and all that stuff. So make sure you hit the subscribe button. I really do appreciate it. So let's switch gears here. I think it's this one. Yep. There we go. So let's switch gears here. I want to talk a little bit about the Pro Tour. And I'm going to play it in the background kind of while I'm talking about it here. So the Pro Tour, basically, is going to, let's see, there it is, boom. All right, let's play in the background. There we go. So the Pro Tour happened this past weekend. We had a pretty extensive range of actual archetypes in the meta as far as in the tournament. The unfortunate part about it is once we got to day 2 was a little bit, it was a little bit more diverse, but once we got to the top 8, obviously that's where you kind of look and see, okay, these are the best decks. These are what people are playing to win tournaments and things like that. We did not have the most diverse top 8, meaning that we had two types of cards. Well, 3 if you want to be specific. We had mono red, we had red black, and we had a single Esper deck, or blue white rather. And to be honest with you, once we got into like the sideboarding of these red decks, there really wasn't a lot of differences between them. You had the Rekindling Phoenix, you had the Goblin Chain Whirler, we had the Scrappy Scrounger, the Ether Hub, or not Ether Hub, the Ether Harvester, Pia and Nalar. Like, there really wasn't a lot, Carry Zev, there really wasn't a lot of differences between the decks once, if you included the 75, right? The 60 from the main deck, and then the 15 from the sideboard. So there really wasn't a lot, and that was kind of one of the biggest complaints about this top 8, was there's not a lot of differences. And once people saw one match, they felt like they saw all, like, oh well, I know exactly how this is going to play out. It's whoever's going to control the board the longest and have the most removal spells for their opponent's Kindling Phoenix, and basically win the push through a victory. Well, first off, if you didn't watch the finale, like the final versus Pinto versus Darby, you really kind of missed out. It was a huge thing, because Wyatt, the gentleman on the right here, won the first 2 matches, right, pretty easily, handily. Like, it was literally the games ended quicker than the in between credits and commercials breaks were. And then Pinto on the left here, Gonzalo, won the second 2. So basically, it's the best out of 5, right? So it's the first person to win 3. So they go to this final match, right? And Pinto's got a pretty good lead on him. As you can see, like, the advantage ticker on the bottom there is basically giving the audience the information that is most relevant for people that don't know what the cards do. That he's controlling the board, he's controlling the game. Looks like he's going to win. It doesn't necessarily come down to like the fact that he has 21 health and his opponent has 9, but it's really about like the board presence and things like that, and like what he has in his hand versus how many cards that his opponent has. Like, it takes a lot of things in consideration, not just life totals. So anyway, if you didn't watch the end of it, you really kind of missed out, because it's an interesting story, and it kind of has it's got an underlining message for everybody that you shouldn't give up. So often, and I've been there myself. So often do we, when we get behind, or we're having bad draws, or we're not hitting our land drops, or we're not, getting enough spells, we're getting mana flooded, we just kind of give up, and we just start making mistakes, and we don't play the best game. And then even sometimes we go as far as conceding and scooping up and don't even finish the game out. The interesting thing with this one, and spoiler alert, Darby gets down to 1 life. You see right now he's at 16-4. There's one additional attack step here where he actually goes down to 1, and Pinto actually gets taken down to 11. And essentially, Darby has his last turn. There's only one card that will save him out of this entire mess, and he draws that card off the top of his deck. It's essentially ways to destroy one of his opponent's creatures, and then he attacks him with all of his guys, dealing exactly 11 damage. So, kind of the story here is, you can't just assume that you're not going to, there isn't going to be a turnaround. I know obviously there's a ton of stories out there where like, oh well, that didn't, there's nothing I can do with my guy. My opponent has counter spells out the wazoo. He's got a handful of cards, so there's nothing I can play. Obviously, with those types of cards and those types of gameplay experiences, there's not going to be a way out. But you don't know that until after you've finished the game. So playing out the game is important, learning from your mistakes. But one of the best things about this type of experience, even if Wyatt wouldn't have won, the best thing he could have done is play out that game, because making those mistakes and just playing good Magic, playing a good game gives you the best opportunity to not make those mistakes in the future. So let me pause this real quick. So he plays a Braid. So this is the beginning. This is the beginning of his last turn here, or second to last turn rather. So he plays the Abrade. He gets rid of the Ether World Harvester or whatever that basically takes him down to 1, and that puts Pinto at 11. So this is the draw, and he's doing the math right now. This is the draw where this is his last turn, right? He's got 4 creatures. And then Pinto's got enough creatures to deal 1 damage, to get 1 creature through, right? He's got 1, 2, 3, let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's got enough creatures that if Pinto didn't draw, or Darby didn't draw a creature, he could get some damage through, something through. And at the very least, the Thopter's got flying, so he's not blocking that. So this is where basically Darby's got to draw the best card in his deck for that moment, which is Glorybringer, I believe a 4/4 dragon with flying, and he's doing math right now. He's like, okay, this is going here. You're gonna block this. Da 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 da. He's basically doing math to ensure that he's gonna get the victory. He's counting up there's Glorybringer and turn him sideways, and then there's his creature. So at the end of the day, kind of what's going on here is they're trying to figure out like, did he do with Kari Zev? He creates a creature at the beginning of combat. So, but basically, what I wanted to talk about here, for at least for this part of the segment, is just you shouldn't give up, right? You shouldn't just concede your game. Even if you've played a horrible game in the beginning, you still should continue playing. And the reason for that is you're not going to get better at it, and you're not going to understand that the tells of your opponent and how to turn a game around if you don't keep playing. So I took it as kind of more of a like a pick me up story. Like this is how you can learn from someone else. Like you should play the entire game out. You should never scoop. So the other conversation that came out of this Pro Tour is the Chain Whirler, Goblin Chain Whirler. Is it too powerful, right? And that's kind of what this whole conversation with basically everybody is talking about. Is it too powerful? So let me go over what it does real quick. So it's a 3/3 first striker goblin for 3 red mana. So with red, you get a 3/3 first striker, which is fantastic. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to each opponent and each creature and planeswalker they control. So one of the arguments here is this card is kind of oppressing a lot of players, or not a lot of players. It's oppressing a lot of different decks that use those types of those 1 toughness creatures as their base, and the argument is like this card is not making it fun for Magic. There's and we've seen it quite a bit when there's been cards in Standard that Wizards didn't really have an understanding of what they were doing in, because they create these decks and these decks, they create these sets so far in advance, so it's something that they weren't aware of, right? Now, one of the things that, let's see here, where is it? This is old. Oh, there it is, Ferocidon. So Ferocidon was a card that was recently banned back in January, Rampaging's Ferocidon. This is a 3/3, 3 mana, 1 red, 2 generic dinosaur at rare. It has menace, players can't gain life, and when another creature enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to that creature's controller. A little bit on it's similar, right? It's very, very similar. It's not the exact same thing, right? This thing, when another creature, so you have to play this and then play another creature. So this thing is dealing damage to a creature's controller, not actually dealing damage to creatures. And I think that's one of the things that people are kind of on their soapboxes about, because the Ferocidon was oppressive, right? But the Goblin Chain Whirler is, in my opinion, much, much stronger, even though it's not repetitive, right? I play this, it deals you 1 damage and then deals all your things 1 damage, right? Whereas like the Ferocidon it's a repeatable thing, and it stops other people from playing Magic, right? If you play a creature, it's going to deal you 1 damage. So while it's a similar card, I don't see like the exact connection that some people are making. So do I think the Whirler needs to be banned? I don't believe so. And let me kind of explain why. So there's plenty of cards to kind of combat this card, right? First of all, you've got the enrage mechanic, which has not been used at all on any of the Pro Tour and most of the high level tournaments. There isn't a lot of the enrage mechanic out there. So that would be, for one, that would be a huge kind of buff to those decks that are using that type of mechanic. And I know that's not going to be a popular opinion, because the dinosaurs are more of a casual deck, and they're not really kind of for serious play. At least that's the mentality that they're given, and the kind of like the stereotype that they're given is like, oh, you're playing a dinosaur deck, you must be a kitchen table casual player. And in some cases, I can see that being true, but when you have 7 of the top 10 or 7 of the top 8 decks running 4 of this creature, that kind of makes the enrage mechanic look that much better. One of the reasons that they might ban this card, now keep in mind, this card just came out, so we're going to have it in standard for a very long time. It's going to be in standard for quite a while. The one thing that it discourages is your opponents playing 1 toughness creature. So like your Land of War elves, things like that. Your little the wizards, like the whole wizard setup is mostly X1s. That won't see play because of this, but it also is systemic for future sets, right? Wizards has already designed the next couple sets. Ravnica and Core Set are probably already printed and in packaging, so there probably isn't going to be much changes to those. So I could see them banning the Chain Whirler because of that. There isn't something to combat it, but from now until we've got the next set coming out, Core Set. We've got a couple ways. There's definitely a couple ways in multiple formats to deal with this thing. The downfall is it when it's entered the battlefield. So countering it does great, but that's only in blue. Destroy it when it's on the battlefield, it's already done its damage. So white, you're kind of like, black has a great way to get rid of it. There's a couple discard spells that you can use to get rid of it, but there seems to be an answer for it. You just have to find that answer. Dinosaurs are, enrage is in 3 of the 4 colors, white, red, green. So maybe sideboard. Maybe if there's some type of enraged creature that you can sideboard in. Possibly, it's worth checking out, and that's one of the things that I'm going to look at for the dinosaur deck is, okay, so now I want to look at what are the 1, 2, 3 drops, and maybe even 4 drops that have enrage. What do they do? Does it benefit me to have those on the battlefield when someone plays the Chain Whirler? So it's just kind of one of those things that you kind of need to adapt. I'm a firm believer in banning as few cards as humanly possible, because that unless there is a huge calling for it. And to be honest with you, some of the people in the top 8 got there because of their draft deck, right? They had a great draft. You had there were several other decks. You had the Karn decks that were green blue. I think it was Channel Fireball, that team that developed that deck. Most of their players didn't do well in the drafts. So they didn't get an opportunity to make it into the top 8 to show, to have their deck. And granted, some of them still lost out to one of these red decks. But at the end of the day, draft is still a very large part of this tournament, and that's one of the things that you need to consider when saying we should ban this card because it was in 7 of the 8 decks in the Pro Tour. So we got to be cautious about that. We need to look at, of the people that were in the 9th through 15th or 9th through 16th place, what was their draft record like? Is the reason why they didn't make it into the top 8, was it because of Chain Whirler, or was it because they had a poor draft? So that's one of the things that you kind of need to, before we go saying, oh, you need to ban this, you need to ban that, because people just are so, shotgun ready to pull the trigger on banning something. If you look at day 2, the conversation was Teferi is too strong, right? Teferi I think it was Brad Nelson that was playing Teferi in his blue-white approach deck. As soon as Teferi comes down, it's you're drawing extra cards. You've got search for Escanta. You're drawing 2 cards a turn. Like it's just not fair. Like we need to ban Teferi. But there was no Teferi, or there was one Teferi in the top 8. So do we ban Teferi because it was it made a ton of day 2? So before we go down the rabbit hole of starting to ban and threatening to ban things and voicing our opinions online, make sure you do a little bit of research. Make sure you figure out was it truly because Chain Whirler is that oppressive? If so, what types of cards does it destroy? Like, how many times did Chain Whirler clear the board? One of the was it Soul Scar Mage? It deals when a creature's dealt damage to an opponent or whatever on opponent controls, it deals it in -1/-1 counters. Now that's an interesting combo, right? So you play the Soul Scar Mage, and now you play your Chain Whirler, and now instead of dealing 1 damage to everything, now everything's getting -1/-1 counters. That's a pretty interesting combo. Only because the damage normally, if you damage a 2/2 at the end of the turn, it normally rolls off, so it goes back to the 2/2. But now that you're dealing a -1/-1 counter, now that 2/2 is now a 1/1 until that counter gets removed or the creature dies. So it's an interesting card. I don't think it's quite as oppressive as everyone says. It's unfortunate that it had, it was in the majority, the vast majority of the decks in the top 8. But that just goes to show you what kind of, card, I think we have this conversation. I feel like we have this conversation just before every rotation. I feel like, it's either as soon as rotation happens when we lose a whole bunch of sets, or right before it happens and we have the most sets available, that red is at its strongest. You've got the Hezeret. We talked about Hezeret. We talked about Soulscar Mage. We didn't even talk about Glorybringer, which won the Pro Tour essentially. People kind of look past that because it didn't get played a lot, but it won the Pro Tour. I mean, it saved Wyatt's butt. But is it really the Chain Whirler that's kind of holding people back, or is the red deck just really that strong? And if that's the case, when Core Set 19 comes out in a couple months, it's losing a bunch of those red cards. It's losing Hezeret. It's losing the 2-drop that's got Eternalize that stops blockers when it attacks. We're losing, there's probably about a good 5 to 6 cards in that deck that's losing out, and the red deck will just go back to what it was. So it seems like, I feel like we have this conversation almost every rotation is either the Pro Tour before the rotation, which is where we're at right now, or the Pro Tour after the rotation. Red is at its peak. And if it's the Pro Tour, if it's strong, the Pro Tour after rotation, the Pro Tour before, it was nowhere in sight. It was nowhere in the meta. It just wasn't possible. But and then people, the Pro Tour after rotation, a big rotation happens. You have the people that are trying to sneak in these quick. People are still trying to figure out the format and figure out the meta, and you've got a couple of these red players or red mages that will just like, okay, these are the best 60 card red deck I can build. I'm just gonna aggro into these control decks, and they won't be able to stabilize before I win the game. So, and then like now we've got all the best red cards in these 4 sets available to these mages, and we're like, okay, well, I'm going to play this red deck because it's got I've got I'm cutting really good cards to make my 60 card cut. So at the end of the day, I enjoyed the tournament. I enjoyed watching day 2. That's probably some of the best Magic I've played. I really didn't mind draft as much. Usually that's one of my pet peeves, is I really don't care to watch people play subpar cards, and in draft decks, or I really like watching people draft cards and seeing like what cards they pick and stuff like that. I find that almost more interesting than the actual gameplay when 2 people are smashing into each other. But in a lot of times, what ends up happening is it's just stalled out board states with everyone's got like 15 creatures, and like the math is stupid hard, so people just make a dumb mistake and then the game's over. But at the end of the day, the draft was actually a lot of fun to watch. And I watched quite a bit of that on Saturday, and then Sunday, the top 8. I mean, you're just seeing high-level play Magic. John Finkel is always a fun person to watch on day 2. He's a great drafter. It's a great person to follow. But at the end of the day, people are going to complain. There's always going to be that conversation of, well, we need to ban this card because it was in the winning deck. We need to ban this card. To be honest with you, I'm surprised there wasn't some some casuals in chat saying, oh, well, we need to ban Glorybringer. It's gonna rotate here in 2 months, so banning it, you can't ban it. It's not possible. So I'll be interested to see what happens. Right now, Chain Whirler, I'm surprised it hasn't gone up yet. I'm actually pretty surprised. It's sitting at $7. So I'm surprised it hasn't sold, because people are afraid that they're gonna ban it, so they're getting rid of them. I do have a copy of it, so it's funny because a lot of the cards that we opened up out of those fat packs, there was like a little bit of each of these decks. We got a Teferi, we didn't get a Karn, we got a couple of the good rare lands and stuff like that. So at the end of the day, it was a fun experience. It's a fun show to watch. So if you get a chance to head back over, it's on the Wizards or Magic the Gathering Twitch stream to check it out. Highly recommend it. It's a great show. So plus coverage was really good. They really did the commentary. Minus there was a couple camera issues from time to time, but there was a lot of really good transitions. The music just got to go. That's one thing. The music's got to go. But the camera work and the music, those are 2 side notes. But overall, the content that we were getting was fairly good. So, all right, guys. Well, that is going to be episode 44. I really do appreciate you watching. Make sure you head over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/72DPI online. Get subscribed. Leave a comment if you enjoyed the show. We will be back next Monday for episode 45. In the meantime, we've got a couple extra streams coming up this week. So tomorrow we've got 8-Bit. I believe I'm going to be playing some old school Baldur's Gate for the PC. So if you've never played that, or if you have played that and you want to kind of take a trip down memory lane with myself, I literally just started playing this weekend. I wouldn't even consider it a play session. I created my character and started the first quest and then completed it and then turned it off because I didn't want to get too far. So we're doing that tomorrow. Then Wednesday, we've got a big ball and chain podcast for you guys. Whole lots to talk about. We've got our full review of Detroit Become Human, full review of State of Decay 2. Find out what our gripes and our likes are with that one, and then we're going to go into some other gaming topics and things like that, and then talk about. I think we're also going to talk about a couple episodes of Westworld and Fear the Walking Dead. Of course, those Fear and Westworld will be full of spoilers, and we'll warn you ahead of time. But the Detroit Become Human review, we will not be spoiling anything. That is going to be very, very difficult, but I believe Angel and I can do it. So make sure you tune in on twitch.tv/72DPI online on Wednesday for that, Wednesday evening. So like I said, really appreciate you guys watching. Have a great evening, and we will see you next time.